Squad, please.
Novak Djokovic is one of the greatest players in the history of tennis. In fact, if his fitness and motivation hold up, he could end his career with more Grand Slam titles than his two illustrious contemporaries, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, with whom he shared the limelight throughout his glorious career. As the third man in a remarkable trio, Djokovic hasn't always been the crowd favourite. His style of play is less artistic than Federer's, and not as buccaneering as Nadal's, and his personality that seems a mixture of professor and warrior isn't one that everyone relates to. But in terms of consistency of dominance over the past decade, Djokovic has been the outstanding player. And in terms of backstory, he has had to overcome far more obstacles than any of his contemporaries. There was no history of tennis in the Djokovic family. His father Srdjan played low-level football, his mother Diana played volleyball and was something of a gymnast, and both taught skiing in the mountains on the Serbia-Kosovo border where they ran a pizza restaurant. The family weren't poor, but they certainly weren't rich. There was enough money to go round, but only ever enough. Young Novak, the eldest of three boys, learned to ski from a young age and enjoyed kicking a football, but it was around his 5th birthday that he saw tennis being played on the television. Because there were some courts near the pizza restaurant, he tried it out. And it was during his summer holidays in 1992 that something happened that would set him towards becoming the best tennis player in the world. That day, the courts opposite the pizzeria were roped off for a tennis camp run by one of Yugoslavia's leading sports coaches, Jelena Gencic. If Djokovic came from the ranks of the people, Gencic came from as close to the communist state had to an aristocracy. In her family were surgeons, politicians, lawyers and artists. And Gencic herself was originally an art historian and psychologist who had pursued a career in television production. But without any qualifications, she had found her niche in tennis coaching. After an hour of the first morning of her course, Gencic noticed a little boy with his face pressed to the courtside fencing. She watched him. He remained focused on the tennis. Knowing the psychology of children, she was struck by how he kept his concentration. So at the end of the morning session, she walked up to him and got chatting. The 5-year-old said his name was Novak. Gencic invited him to join her for the afternoon, to which Novak replied, "I've been waiting for you to ask me." That afternoon, Gencic was so impressed with the boy's focus and ability to learn that she sought out his parents. She told them, "You have a golden child," and offered to coach him. The Djokovic's had no idea about tennis, but they trusted the kindly 57-year-old, and after discovering she had mentored the young Monica Seles, they agreed she could coach their son. Jelena Gencic remained Djokovic's coach for 7 years, and he refers to her as his tennis mother. But she taught him more than just tennis. Recognizing he had sufficient talent to go right to the top, she made sure to teach him about internationally accepted table manners and introduced him to classical music, poetry, scientists and philosophers. She also instilled in him a curiosity about life that has led him to many of the experimental approaches he has tried as a tennis player and sometimes been knocked for. Gencic predicted from the start that Djokovic would make the world's top 5 as a teenager. She said he never got tired, either physically or mentally. She devised practice and tournament schedules and even negotiated an extra week's school holiday from his head teacher so he could do more tennis. Her belief clearly rubbed off on him. At the age of 7, he appeared on a national TV program in which children interview children, wearing a cap with a peak at the back, telling the nation he was going to be world number 1. But Gencic had to be clear about one thing: she couldn't provide money, and as Djokovic got better, he would need money for tournaments, equipment, and eventually international travel. But the family didn't have much of that. His father and uncle frequently had to borrow, and in the chaotic state Serbia was in following the Yugoslav wars and the unregulated emergence of capitalism from a centrally controlled economy, Srdjan Djokovic found himself on occasions with a knife to his throat, hastily having to take out new loans to pay off the old loans, often at punitive interest rates. Djokovic would spend term time in Belgrade and the winter and summer holidays in the mountains when the pizzeria was at its most profitable. It was during term time when he was 11 that Belgrade was bombed by NATO aircraft. Djokovic avoided much of the Yugoslav wars of the 1990s, but he couldn't avoid the NATO airstrikes. He enjoyed missing school as it allowed him to play more tennis, but he had to practice on different courts every day as word got round about which courts might be targeted. In the nightly raids, he took shelter in the basement of his grandfather's flat. By the time Djokovic and Gencic split, Novak was 12 and needed some international input. He spent a while at the academy in Munich run by Niki Pilic, one of Yugoslavia's greatest players. It was the first time he had gone abroad, other than for the odd tournament. The move was a big deal, one that indicated he had taken the decision to pursue a career as a professional tennis player, and that his family supported that decision. For a while, the family really struggled financially, but in the end it proved worthwhile, with Djokovic getting onto the Grand Slam Roll of Honour by winning the 2008 Australian Open, and then dominating for a decade from the start of 2011. Since then, Djokovic has been the most consistently dominant player in world tennis. He has put Serbia on the map in a positive sense after its reputation took a battering in the Yugoslav wars, and he has done much to help those less fortunate in Serbia and the wider Balkans region. He's smart enough for there to be a significant role of some sort for him when his playing days are over. But until then, the boy who put his face to the perimeter fencing at the age of 5 is still the man to beat in world tennis.